Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another video of Be the Best DFS Daily Fantasy Sports. Today is Thursday, September 13th, 2018, and this will be my week 2 video for this upcoming NFL slate, Sunday, September 16th. Quick recap on week 1. It was a decent week for me on FanDuel. The top lineup score I put up was like 177 points. Cash for about $80 or so. On DraftKings, the top lineup I put was 210 points. Both of those lineup results are posted on my Instagram page as well as in the Facebook group. Looking forward to this week. It's a big week, a lot of good games. And without further ado, I'm going to get started talking about my top plays for week 2. So starting at the first position, the quarterback stack that I like the most. I think this week the top quarterback stack, definitely in cash games, but it's going to be viable in tournaments as well. It's going to be Drew Brees and Michael Thomas for the New Orleans Saints. It's going to be popular. It's expensive, but the Saints are at home at Mercedes-Benz Superdome. We saw what they did versus the Buccaneers on last week. They have one of the highest projected totals on the slate, team totals on the slate at like 29 points or so. So most certainly in cash, I think that the Saints stack is the way to go. You can make a case to fade them in tournaments. But, Drew Brees at home, he showed it in week 1. I had one tournament lined up with Drew Brees on DraftKings in week 1. And that was the lineup, I believe, that put up the most points for me, 210. I didn't have him on FanDuel. I went with Tom Brady on FanDuel. But Drew Brees, he's the most expensive, but cash games, I think that's the way to go for right now. You can make a case, of course, to fade them in tournaments because of the ownership. But so Drew Brees and Thomas, that's the focal point. I think you can go ahead and throw Kamara in there as well as part of the stack. He's like a receiver. He had 112 receiving yards in week 1, 12 targets, 9 receptions. So, he's the ultimate dual threat running back with the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. So, in cash games, I think Drew Brees, Thomas, and Kamara, that's a good starting point, at least on FanDuel. I know that the pricing can be a little more tight on DraftKings, so you may can't fit all three of them in there. But on FanDuel, I think those three are the way to go in cash games. I'm going to talk about some value plays as I go throughout this video. Also on the Saints, I like Ted Ginn Jr., I think, on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I think he's priced appropriately. Let me see what his price is. Ted Ginn Jr. Ted Ginn, yeah, he's $6,800 on FanDuel, so I don't think there's much value in his price. But Cameron Meredith was ruled inactive, shortly before lock on Sunday, and I plugged him in on DraftKings week 1. I plugged in Ginn Jr. He got a touchdown. Had like 15 fantasy points. So I think his price is still in the $4,000 range on DraftKings. So he may be a little more favorable on DK, but Ted Ginn Jr., he's a viable play as well. So overall, one of the stacks that I like is going to be the Saints with primarily Drew Brees and Michael Thomas for cash games on FanDuel, but definitely viable in tournaments as well. Now, another stack that I really, really like this week that's going to most likely be less owned, could be kind of contrarian. That's going to be my team, man. Matty Ice for the Atlanta Falcons and Julio Jones. Matt Ryan is at a very, very fair price of 7,100 on FanDuel. I believe he's 5,700 on DraftKings. He did have a below average week one. He had less than 300 yards. He really didn't. Let me see, get the specifics. Yeah, he had 251 yards, no touchdowns, only 9.8 fantasy points. So the algorithm, they factored that in and they made his price very, very low. But, the Falcons were playing against a top-ranked defense. It was on the road in a hostile environment. The Philadelphia Eagles were celebrating their Super Bowl championship. Me being a Falcons fan since 1998, I've been watching Matt Ryan his whole career. He historically plays better at home in Atlanta. And I expect for him to have a big game this week. The Falcons need this win. The Falcons definitely need this win. We're 0-1. This is a division game. If y'all been watching my videos for the past few seasons, a couple seasons ago when they played the Panthers here in Atlanta, I think it was like week 3, Matt Ryan had 300 passing yards and Julio Jones had 300 receiving yards against the Panthers in 2016 here in Atlanta. Check the game logs. I had Matt Ryan that week in daily fantasy. He was like 1% owned. But again, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones is one of my favorite tournament stacks for this week. Julio, let's see. Julio is 8,500. So it's an expensive stack, but I think it's a stack that will perform well on this week. We all know that Julio got a lot of targets in week 1. He's first in targets. He had 19 targets, 169 receiving yards. He just failed to get out of the end zone. But I don't think anyone on the Carolina Panthers is going to be able to defend Julio. Now, another reason why I like this stack, the Falcons, we're missing 2 of our Pro Bowl defensive players. Keanu Neal is out for the season, and Deion Jones is on injured reserve. That's going to make our defense weaker, and I think that's going to cause the game to stay competitive all 4 quarters. Carolina, they probably will be able to, move the ball downfield on us, score some points, and I just think it's going to be a competitive game throughout 4 quarters. And if it's like that, Matt Ryan, he's going to have to, pass the ball a lot. Our running game wasn't really looking strong in week 1, so I think they're going to lean more towards the pass. But this week, I think Matt Ryan is going to be able to spread the ball around a little more. So I would expect for guys like Sanu, Ridley, and both of our running backs to get involved in the pass game. So along with the stack of Matt Ryan and Julio, I think that Mohamed Sanu is a viable option as well. In large GPPs, if you're making multiple lineups, Calvin Ridley. But Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, that's another stack that I like for this week, only for tournaments on both sites. I don't think it's really safe for cash, with the Saints being out there and their prolific offense. But in tournaments, I do feel that the Atlanta Falcons with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones is a good way to go. Rise up. All right. The third quarterback stack that I like for this week is going to be Case Keenum and Emmanuel Sanders of the Denver Broncos. Case Keenum is, Case Keenum is 6,700 and Emmanuel Sanders is, I want to say 60, hold on. Emmanuel Sanders is 6,800 on FanDuel, and I think I can't remember their prices on DK, but I do think they're at a value price. So out of the quarterback stacks that I like this week, I think this will be the value stack based on point per dollar plays. Case Keenum is 2,100 less than Drew Brees, and Emmanuel Sanders is 2,000 less than Michael Thomas. They're playing against the Oakland Raiders at home in Denver with the thin air. And Case Keenum, he threw a couple interceptions on last week, but he passed for over 329 yards and had 3 passing touchdowns. So I think against this Oakland Raiders defense, who's missing Khalil Mack, and they gave up 33 points to the Rams on Monday Night Football. They're on a short week. I really like the Denver Broncos, and I do think Keenum and Sanders, and you can throw in Demaryius Thomas as well. I think it's a viable stack for tournaments. Again, I think the chalk is going to be with probably the Saints, and maybe the Steelers and the Chiefs. That's probably where the chalk going to be. So in tournaments, I think they're a fine play. Denver Broncos. So that's my value stack for this week. Case Keenum with the Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas. I quickly just want to kind of mention something about a few other quarterbacks that could be interesting. Matthew Stafford had a horrible game. He could bounce back this week versus San Francisco. The 49ers and Lions, they have one of the higher game totals on the slate. So he could bounce back. He's possibly in play for tournaments. We saw Patrick Mahomes have a great game, pass for 4 touchdowns in week 1. Steelers and the Chiefs is a high total game. I think, he could be in play. And, it's still early in the season. A lot of quarterbacks could be in play. I've heard some people talking about Tyrod Taylor. We saw what Ryan Fitzpatrick did versus Saints. So, one of my friends say the Mercedes-Benz Superdome is like is like the Coors Field effect in MLB, and it showed that in Week 1, a 48-40 game. So, Tyrod Taylor could be in play for value. Playing in New Orleans like that. So, I don't hate that, but for the purposes of this video, the main 3 stacks that I like are with the quarterback is Drew Brees and Michael Thomas with the Saints, Matt Ryan and Julio with the Falcons, and Case Keenum and Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas, as a value stack, primarily on FanDuel, but these plays could also be viable on DraftKings as well. Let me move on to the running back position. Running back. There's 2 running backs that are the top plays in my opinion. They're the 2 most expensive running backs, but I think they're worth the price tag this week. Alvin Kamara for $9,000, Todd Gurley for $8,900 on FanDuel. On DK, I think Alvin Kamara is $9,500 and Todd Gurley is $9,200. Those 2 guys, I think they're great plays in your cash games as well as in your tournaments as well. What I like about them, they both in games where they're the home teams that's favored to win by at least 5 points or more. I don't have the specifics, but they're both home favorites, and they both have high projected totals. The Saints have a Vegas odds projected total of at least 29 points. We saw what Kamara did in week 1. There still is no Mark Ingram, so I fully expect him to, have that high usage within the Saints offense. So Kamara, gotta love him. He's expensive, but I'm going to talk about some value plays that can help you fit him in there. And Todd Gurley, I just think the Arizona Cardinals, they're a sorry team, man. They got beat down by the Redskins at home in week 1. I project them to lose big time versus the Rams this weekend in Los Angeles. And once the Rams get the lead, that's going to increase the likelihood of extra carries for Gurley. This is the reigning Offensive Player of the Year. Yeah, Todd Gurley the second. I like him too. Tournaments and cash games as well. One of my favorite value plays, and this is going to be at the running back position. Kind of similar to how James Conner was in week 1. I use James Conner a lot in week 1. I didn't get to mention him in this video because it was like Thursday, and by the time it got to Sunday and I looked at things, I was on Conner. But one of the value plays that I like is going to be Philip Lindsay of the Denver Broncos. 4,900 on FanDuel. I think 4,400 on DraftKings. In week 1, he had 17 touches. He was like second behind Freeman as far as at the running back position. I'm reading this on FanDuel. Booker, he was like the third most used running back. But the price and the usage and the matchup, Oakland Raiders, they're not a good defense. Broncos at home, they're projected to win, and that value price and just the touches. If he can get 17 touches again, this week at that price, I think he's great value. So Philip Lindsay is one of the Denver Broncos, 4,900 on FanDuel at running back, 4,400 on DK. I think he's going to be a key value play for me this week, and I think that his value will allow you to pay up for some of the more expensive guys on the plate on the slate. So definitely like him at running back. I think James Conner is in play. 100 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They bumped his price up. He's 7,000 this week, but he had 192 all-purpose yards. He was just great in week 1. Let me look at his specific stats. 135 rushing yards, 57 receiving yards. He had 37 touches. The Chiefs, they're an up-tempo offense. Andy Reid likes to pass. The game has a high projected total. So I think James Conner is a good play this week. You're not going to get the same value that you had in week 1, but at 7,000, I think he's a good play. So I like him for tournaments. Not sure about cash games, but James Conner, I think he's definitely viable again on this week as well. He had a great week 1, and I look for him to continue that success in week 2. Another running back that I like is Adrian Peterson. On DraftKings, he's like 5,600. And on FanDuel, he's 6,700. Washington, they're home favorites in this game. The Colts, let's see. Well, let's look at Adrian Peterson. Week 1, he had 26 carries for 96 yards and 2 catches for 70 yards. That's 28 touches. So, at his price, if you want to save some money from the top running backs, I think Peterson is someone in that mid-tier that's a good play on this week, especially versus the Colts. Redskins should win that game, and I expect Peterson to get a bulk of the carries if they're in a position to close out the game. And another running back I want to mention is, where is he at? Okay. James White for the New England Patriots. Only for tournaments, but Rex Burkhead, he's dealing with some concussions. And their other running back, Jeremy Hill, went to the IR. James White could get some usage. He's at a value price of $5,900. Well, a fair price of $5,900. I think he's in play for tournaments. And there's another guy that I want to mention at running back. Dion Lewis. He had more usage than Derrick Henry in week 1. He had 16 carries and five catches. So that's 20 plus touches. So Dion Lewis for the Tennessee Titans, I think he's in play. I like him a little more on DK. I think he's like 5,000 on DK. But, his usage in the offense, I think he's a fine play at the running back position as well. There are probably some other people in play, but I just want to point out the key people I like just for the purposes of not making this video, super long. Let me move on to wide receiver. So wide receiver, when I talked about my stacks, of course, I like those guys. Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas. I do like all of those guys. But other wide receivers that I like for this week, Antonio Brown, he's definitely in play. He's the top wide receiver in the league. 16 targets in week 1, 93 yards. They're at home, so he should have a big game. He's just kind of expensive. I like Detroit wide receivers for a mid-tier price. I think that's going to be a high-scoring, competitive game versus the Lions versus the 49ers. So I do like Tate and Jones, but for value as a tournament play, I don't know how popular this guy going to be in cash, but I'm really big on this guy. Kenny Golladay for 5,700. Hey, week 1, he had 12 targets, 114 receiving yards, 7 catches, 12 targets. In that offense with Marvin Jones and Golden Tate, I'm like shocked that he had 12 targets. And I just think that, at his price of 5,700, I think he's a fair play. And I think he's good value on DK where he's 4,800. So Kenny Golladay for 5,700. I really, really like him at receiver for tournaments. Another tournament play that I like, Indianapolis Colts, Ryan Grant. I know it's a tough matchup versus Washington, but he's 4,900. It's the price and the targets. He had 9 targets. He pretty much solidified his role as like the number 2 receiver in the Colts offense. And one of the main things I feel like when you're looking for receivers are to see how many targets a receiver got. How many times did the quarterback look to him? And the Colts, they're going to have to throw the ball because they're not going to be in a position. They don't have good running backs. They probably won't have the lead, and it's on the road. So they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. For tournaments, I like Grant, Ryan Grant as a value play, 4,900. He's probably cheaper than that on DK. Probably like 4,000 or less. I'm not absolutely positive on what's his price on DK. But Ryan Grant, I like him for value. Tyreek Hill is in play. We saw what he did in week 1. 38.8 FanDuel points. Had a return touchdown. So he's in play. You gotta like him. I'm not on DeAndre Hopkins. I just think about Malcolm Butler as a cornerback on the Tennessee Titans side. I think it's a tough matchup for him, so I'm just going to pass on DeAndre Hopkins, at that price on this week. But he could do well. Brandon Cooks, like him, he's in play. He would have had a bigger game versus the Raiders, but a couple of the deep passes when I was watching Monday Night Football, he had a pass interference called on the defense. So that stopped like at least 2 deep plays that Brandon Cooks had on Monday night. So Cooks, he's one of the fastest guys in the NFL at a price of 7,000. I do think he's in play. It was just the pass interferences that stopped like at least 2 of his big plays on Monday night. And I think the last receiver that I want to mention is Jarvis Landry. We saw what Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson did to this Saints defense in week 1. Jarvis Landry, he went to LSU. If I'm not mistaken, he's from Louisiana. Cleveland, they are going to have to throw the ball a lot because it's either going to be competitive or they most likely will be playing from behind. Jarvis Landry had 15 targets in week 1, 106 yards. I think he's a fair play at 6,700. I do like him as well this week at the wide receiver position. Can't remember his price on DK right now, but Jarvis Landry, he's in play. That's pretty much the gist of what I like at wide receiver. And the last position, tight end. So last week, y'all know I was all on Gronk. Same thing. I think Gronk is a good play this week. His price is a little high, 8,100. But, Jalen Ramsey, talking that trash again. I think Gronkowski's going to be ready, to, prove a point that, he is like one of the top tight ends in the league. And again, there's no Edelman out due to suspension. Gronkowski is the number one option, most reliable target on the New England Patriots. So if you can fit Gronkowski in with some of the value plays that I mentioned, I think Gronkowski is definitely the top tight end as far as upside for week 1. A guy that I'm going to use most likely in my cash game and for value is going to be for the Tennessee Titans, Jonnu Smith for 4,200. Hey, Delanie Walker, he hurt his ankle. He's out for the season. When Delanie Walker is healthy, he's the top number one option for Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota, he's going to play this week. Hopefully, he still looks for the tight end, but I just think at that value price, Jonnu Smith for 4,200. I don't know if it's a tournament play or not, but I know it's a value play. I can't tell you if it's tournament or cash, but it's great value. 4,200 on FanDuel, 3,100 on DraftKings. Jonnu Smith, tight end for the Tennessee Titans. He'll be taking over for Delanie Walker. If anything, it's a value play. He's very, very cheap. I'm not sure, if a lot of the industry is on him or not. I'm not sure because I don't really, look online and look at too many videos all the time. But I don't know how popular this guy going to be. But I'm going to have exposure to him. So Jonnu Smith, that's a value play that I like on both sites. And team defenses, I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams for right now. If Sam Bradford is still the starter, I think the Rams, they dominate. They sack him, get some interceptions off of him. The Rams are the most expensive defense on both sites, but, I like them. Of course, there's other plays that you can play at team defenses, but I think the Rams are the safe play and also a play with high upside. Let me close out this video. Basically, a quick recap of everything I like again. As far as stacks, I like for offense, I like the Saints, I like the Falcons, and the Broncos. Running backs, I like Kamara and Gurley for high upside. I like Connor for mid-tier pricing, and Philip Lindsay as a value play. Wide receivers, I like the guys that correlate with my stacks. For value, like Golladay, Grant, and throw Bruce Ellington in there if Fuller is ruled out again. Throw Bruce Ellington in there as a value receiver. Tight end, if I'm paying up, I like Gronkowski. For value, Jonnu Smith. So, in team defenses, Los Angeles Rams. So, again, the value plays. Value is what's key, in these NFL weekly lineups. Key value plays for me, Philip Lindsay, Jonnu Smith. Those are probably the main two. Philip Lindsay for the Denver Broncos and Jonnu Smith. Those are the two key value plays that I like for this week. I think those two guys on either site will allow you to pay up at other positions and give you more flexibility in your lineup for week 2. But I want to thank everyone again for tuning in, watching this video, listening to me discuss this slate for week 2. Again, week 1 was pretty decent for me. Made a little profit on FanDuel. Took a short loss on DraftKings. But, this week is a new week, a new opportunity to be great, a new opportunity to be the best. Be sure to follow all of my information on social media. Search the hashtag BeTheBestDFS, and you'll find me on Instagram, Twitter, the Facebook group, and YouTube. Also, if you found this video helpful and you like what I was talking about and you like the information that I gave, please give it a thumbs up with a like and subscribe. Please, that will really help the channel grow. And for those of y'all that don't know, the motto of my brand is count the wins as blessings, losses teach lessons. That's the motto I try to live by in life, and the same thing I try to do with daily fantasy. So I wish everyone much success today. Much success this week. And I thank everyone for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all on the next week for week 3. All right, I'm out.